I thought my blind date had left me there until the second cup of coffee on my table started to feel like evidence. The tablet behind the counter was still glowing blue, still connected to Lily's phone, still waiting for whatever message might come through next. I did not know it yet, but in a few hours, a voice I knew better than my own would come through that little speaker and make the whole cafe hold its breath. Earlier that evening, I was just a man in a clean shirt trying to look like he belonged on a blind date. My name was Ethan Cole, and most days I managed a warehouse on the south side of the city, where the air smelled like cardboard, diesel, rainwater, and black coffee. I knew how to count pallets in the dark. I knew which loading dock door stuck in the cold. I knew how to talk down drivers who had been waiting too long and bosses who wanted miracles by morning. Feelings were harder. Feelings did not come with labels, barcodes, or a place to stack them. That was probably why I had let my coworker set me up with Claire, a kind woman with silver earrings and careful questions. She asked about my job, my mother's heart surgery, my plans for the next 5 years. I answered politely. I smiled when I was supposed to, but every time the bell over the cafe door rang, my eyes moved before I could stop them. Claire noticed by the third time. Across from me sat 2 cups, my Americano untouched at the rim. Beside it, a vanilla latte with a cardboard sleeve folded twice because Nora always said the cups were too hot after a 12-hour shift. Nora Hayes was an ER nurse at Mercy General. She lived by alarms, charting, compression socks, and cheap protein bars she forgot to eat. She wanted to become a nurse practitioner, though she only admitted that dream when she was exhausted enough to be honest. For 3 years and 4 months, Thursday nights had belonged to us without either of us naming it. She would come in wearing scrubs, smelling faintly of antiseptic and winter air, and I would already have her drink waiting. Sometimes she arrived laughing. Sometimes she arrived too tired to speak. Once, after my mother's surgery, she sat with me in this booth and wrote the medication schedule on napkins because I could not make my hands stop shaking. Once, when her car died outside the hospital, I changed the battery in the freezing rain and told her I had been nearby, though I had driven 20 minutes across town. We called it friendship because friendship was safe. Friendship did not ask why she knew where I kept the spare key. Friendship did not ask why I had a drawer full of her granola bars in my apartment. Claire looked at the second cup, then at me, not angry, only gently disappointed. "Ethan," she said, laying her napkin beside her plate, "you seem like a good man, but I don't think you're waiting for me." I opened my mouth, but nothing useful came out. She stood, wished me luck, and left beneath the small gold bell. Lily came over with the check and reached for the latte. My hand moved before my thoughts did. "Leave it," I said. My phone lit up. "Nora, ER is a mess. Did you save my seat?" I stared at those 6 words too long, while the coffee cooled between my hands, and wondered why the thing I kept searching for always sounded exactly like her. The bell over the door stopped moving, but I kept looking at it like it owed me an explanation. Lily left the latte where it was and carried the check back to the counter without saying anything. The cafe had thinned to its late-night version. 2 students with laptops, an older man reading the same newspaper he brought every Thursday, the soft hiss of the espresso machine being cleaned. Behind the counter, Lily's phone sat plugged into the ordering tablet, the screen glowing with a blue music app and a small white Bluetooth symbol in the corner. I did not notice that detail until later. I noticed the latte first. The cardboard sleeve had Nora's name written on it in Lily's round handwriting, but underneath, almost hidden by the fold, Lily had drawn a tiny seat with an arrow. Saved. It made something in my chest tighten. My phone buzzed again, not from Nora this time, but from the cafe tablet. The music cut out mid-song. Lily frowned, drying her hands on a towel. "That's weird," she murmured. Then Nora's voice filled the room, low and breathless, like she was walking fast through the hospital parking garage. "Lil, don't play this out loud, okay? I'm using voice note because my hands are shaking and I don't want to text while I'm walking." Lily froze. I froze with her. I knew right away this was not meant for me. I knew it in the way Nora softened Lily's name, in the tired edge she never used unless she thought she was safe. My hand moved toward the tablet, but not fast enough. Lily reached too, panic flashing across her face, and the towel slipped from her fingers to the floor. Nora kept talking. Did he leave? A pause. Her breathing. A car door slamming somewhere behind her. Please tell me he left before I get there. I can't walk in wearing scrubs and pretend it doesn't hurt to see him waiting for somebody else. My throat went dry. The room seemed to pull back from me. Every chair, every light, every quiet clink behind the counter suddenly too sharp. I should have stood up. I should have turned off the speaker. I should have protected her privacy the moment I understood I was hearing something she had not chosen to give me. Instead, shame pinned me to the booth for 3 unbearable seconds. Lily hit the tablet, missed the pause button, and whispered, "No, no, no." Nora's voice broke smaller. He keeps looking for someone steady, someone kind, someone who understands long hours and family mess and real life. She gave a short laugh that did not sound like laughing. I've been sitting across from him for 3 years, Lily. 3 years. And I stopped waiting for him to notice. I just never stopped loving him. The student by the window looked up. Lily finally killed the audio. Silence slammed down so hard I heard the refrigerator hum behind the pastry case. My hand was still hovering over the table, fingers curled uselessly, the way they had curled outside my mother's hospital room when Nora was the only person who knew what to do. Lily's face had gone pale. "Ethan," she said, and my name sounded like an accusation. Before I could answer, the cafe phone lit up on the counter. Nora calling. The screen flashed bright blue, her name filling the glass. Lily stared at it. I stared at it. Then, through the front window, I saw a woman in green scrubs running across the wet street, one hand holding her jacket closed, eyes fixed on our table. She pushed through the door, breathless, saw my face, saw Lily's, saw the dead tablet between us, and whispered, "You heard me." For a moment, none of us moved. Nora stood just inside the door with rain on her scrubs and one hand still wrapped around her phone. The cafe lights turned the wet fabric dark at her shoulders. Lily's tablet sat on the counter with the music app open, the little microphone icon now gray instead of red, like it was pretending nothing had happened. I stood too quickly and hit my knee against the underside of the table. The 2 coffee cups jumped. A thin brown ring spilled from my Americano onto the receipt. "Nora," I said, but her name came out too rough. She lifted her phone between us like a stop sign. "Don't." Then the cafe phone rang again because her call had not ended. Lily, pale and careful, tapped speaker by accident and Nora's voice echoed from the counter a half second after her mouth moved. "Don't say anything you only mean because you're shocked." That echo made everything worse, like the room itself was repeating her boundary. I looked at the glowing screen, at Lily's hand hovering over the end button, at Nora's jacket still dripping onto the floor mat. "You're right," I said. "I heard something private. I should have shut it off the second I knew."
"I'm sorry."
Nora blinked once, hard, not crying, holding the line. "Then don't turn it into a speech." Lily stepped between the counter and our table, not blocking me exactly, but close enough to remind me she had seen 3 years from the outside. "Ethan," she said quietly, "don't make promises you haven't understood yet." I nodded because she was right, and because my body was still catching up to the damage my silence had done. My hands were cold. My mouth tasted like burnt coffee. I looked down at the latte with her name on it and suddenly saw it as more than habit. I saw Nora's hand sliding aspirin across the same table after I worked a double and lied that I was fine. I saw her programming my mother's medication alarms because I kept mixing up the little white pills. I saw my own phone history, her name at the top every time the warehouse flooded, every time a date ended badly, every time I sat in my truck too tired to go home. I saw myself comparing every woman across from me to the quiet I felt when Nora sat there in scrubs, twisting the cup sleeve twice before drinking. "I don't know how to answer fast enough without making it cheap," I said. "But I know this. I have been calling you first for years." Her chin trembled, and she hated that it did. "That doesn't mean love. That can mean convenience, habit, fear of being alone." "I know. Do you?" Her eyes pinned me harder than anger would have. Because tonight you had a bad date, heard a confession you weren't supposed to hear, and now maybe you're scared the person who always stays won't stay anymore. The words landed clean because they were true enough to hurt. I gripped the back of the chair and forced myself not to reach for her. I don't want to trap you in what I just learned. Good. She stepped back toward the door. Because if this matters, it can't be solved with me standing in wet scrubs while everyone watches. Lily finally pressed the red button. The screen went dark. Nora looked at me one last time. Give me time, Ethan. Important things deserve better than a speakerphone accident. Then she turned and walked back into the rain. I did not follow her into the rain. That was the first decent thing I managed to do. I sat in my truck outside Harbor Light with both hands on the steering wheel until the glass fogged around the edges and the cafe sign went dark behind me. Twice, I picked up my phone. Twice, I put it down. At 1:17 a.m., I sent one message. I owe you an apology in person. I won't come up unless you say yes. Then I drove to her building and parked across the street. Engine off, headlights off, a paper bag from the all-night diner cooling in the passenger seat. Not flowers, not some grand gesture, just soup, ginger ale, and the peanut butter crackers she ate after bad shifts because hospital vending machines were a crime against humanity. Her apartment window was lit on the 3rd floor. For 20 minutes, nothing happened. Then my phone buzzed. Lobby. 5 minutes. I got out before I could think myself into staying safe. Nora came down in a gray sweatshirt over her scrubs. Hair loose now, face washed clean, exhaustion sitting under her eyes like bruises. She did not open her arms. She did not smile. She unlocked the front door, stepped onto the small covered entryway, and let it close behind her so we were both outside. That mattered. She chose the distance. I set the bag on the brick ledge between us. You don't have to take it. I know. Her voice was flat, but she looked at the crackers. That's why I might. A bus hissed past the corner, throwing light across her face and then taking it away. She folded her arms. Answer me one thing. If that voice note never played, would you have ever said anything? I had rehearsed better answers in the truck. Softer ones. Braver ones. None of them survived her eyes. Maybe not, I said. Her mouth tightened. Ethan, I'm not proud of it. I think I would have kept hiding behind Thursday Coffee and calling you my friend because it let me have you without risking losing you. The words scraped on the way out. But what I feel didn't start tonight. Tonight just took away my excuse. She looked down at the wet sidewalk. That sounds nice. It isn't enough. I reached into my coat, pulled out my key ring, and removed the small brass key to my apartment. The one she had used when my mother needed her meds and I was stuck at the warehouse. I held it in my palm, not offering it yet. You already had this before I understood what it meant. You had my mother's pill schedule on your fridge. You had my emergency contact forms. You had the side of me I never gave the women I kept trying to date. Nora's fingers flexed inside her sleeves. I won't be your replacement for loneliness. No, I won't be hidden because you're embarrassed it took you this long. Never. And tomorrow morning, you don't get to panic and call this confusing. I swallowed. Tomorrow morning, I'll still call it choosing you. Her eyes filled, but she held herself steady. Say it without the accident between us. I stepped closer, stopping before the ledge. Nora, I choose you. Not because I heard you. Because I should have seen you. For a long moment only rain spoke. Then she reached across the brick ledge, took my hand, and placed the key back in my palm with her fingers wrapped around mine. Ask me on a real date, Ethan. Her thumb pressed once against my knuckles. And don't be late. Our first real date happened on a Sunday morning because Nora said dinner felt too dramatic and breakfast left room for honesty. She chose a diner near Mercy General where the coffee came in thick white mugs and nobody cared if she wore compression socks under her jeans. I arrived 11 minutes early and sat facing the door, not because I was waiting to be rescued by the bell, but because I wanted her to see me choosing the room before she walked into it. She noticed. Of course she noticed. Nora noticed missing buttons, uneven breathing, expired prescriptions, and men pretending not to be nervous. You're early, she said, sliding into the booth. I'm learning. She smiled into the menu like she did not want to reward me too much. We moved slowly after that because she insisted on it. We don't get to skip steps just because we've known each other forever, she told me, tapping her spoon against her coffee. So we dated like beginners with a history. We went to the grocery store after her shift and argued softly over apples. She hated the soft ones. I thought they were fine. She left a navy jacket on the back of my kitchen chair one Tuesday and took it back Thursday, then left it again on purpose the next week. Her laptop began appearing on my coffee table, surrounded by highlighters, flashcards, and nursing journals with folded corners. I learned not to talk when she was studying medication interactions. She learned that I sorted bills by due date and stress level. One night, after my mother's physical therapy appointment, Nora came over with soup she had not cooked but had very confidently reheated. She checked Mom's incision without making it feel like a favor, then sat on the floor beside her recliner and laughed at an old game show until my mother looked at me over Nora's head with something dangerous and hopeful in her eyes. I shook my head once, not because I denied it anymore, because I was afraid to break it by naming it too loudly. The first drawer came from Nora, not me. She stood in my bathroom holding her toothbrush in its plastic travel case, looking at the crowded cabinet full of razors, aspirin, and half-empty cough syrup. "This is not a proposal," she said. "It's a hygiene decision." I cleared the top drawer before she could change her mind. A week later, she gave me a spare key to her apartment with a red rubber cover shaped like a house. "Emergency use," she warned. "And normal days," I said. Her eyes softened. That was what I had to learn. Not to show up only when the tire blew, the shift broke her, or my mother needed help. I brought lunch to the hospital on an ordinary Wednesday and left before she could feel watched. I texted her pictures of boring warehouse sunsets. She sent me photos of vending machine dinners with captions like, "Evidence of poor life choices." It was warm. It was real. And because it was real, it had edges. Her mug stayed by my sink for 3 days because I kept meaning to wash it. My 5:30 alarm woke her after a 16-hour shift. She said she was fine, but she turned her face into the pillow and went silent in a way I should have understood. That morning, I kissed her hair, promised I would call after inventory, and walked out believing love could survive a missed detail or two. By Friday, the mug by my sink had become more than a mug. It was still sitting there with a brown crescent of dried coffee at the bottom, beside a cereal bowl I had rinsed badly and a pan I kept pretending needed to soak. Nora noticed it when she came in after a double, one shoe half untied, her badge still clipped to her scrub pocket. She did not complain at first. She set her bag on the chair, looked at the cold dinner I had left covered on the stove, then looked at the kitchen like it was a patient refusing to admit it was bleeding. I was at the table with warehouse reports spread in front of me, my phone buzzing every few minutes because inventory numbers were wrong again. "You ate?" she asked. "A sandwich around 3. Ethan." "I know." I rubbed my eyes. "I was going to heat this up when you got here." She opened the fridge and stopped. Inside were 3 meal prep containers I had ordered from a service without asking her, each one labeled with calories, protein, sodium. I had thought it was thoughtful. She worked brutal hours. She forgot meals. I wanted one less thing to hurt her. Nora shut the fridge slowly. That was worse than slamming it. "Did you buy those for me?" "For us," I said, already hearing the problem and still walking into it. "You said hospital food was trash. So you made a system." I tried to help. She put both hands on the counter, shoulders tight. "You made a system for my body and my schedule without asking me." My chair scraped back. "That's not what I meant." "I know what you meant." Her voice stayed quiet, which made me listen harder. "That's the hard part. You meant care. But it feels like management." I looked at the little containers, then at the red key to her apartment lying on the table beside my invoices. The key looked suddenly heavier than it should have. "I'm not trying to control you." "No," she said. "You're trying to prevent every problem before I get a say in it." She closed her laptop with a sharp click even though she had not opened it. "And I do my version too. When I'm scared I'm leaning on you too much, I disappear. I say I'm fine. I make you guess. That isn't fair either. The room held us there. The half-empty drawer in the bathroom, her jacket on my chair, my mother's pill chart on the fridge, the dinner gone rubbery under foil. Love had filled my apartment with objects before we had learned where to put the weight of them. Tell me what to do, I said. Nora shook her head. Ask me what helps. That's different. So we took a yellow legal pad from my work bag and made rules like adults who were tired of hurting each other by accident. Ask before fixing. Say quiet, not gone, when one of us needed space. No leaving during hard conversations unless we named a time to come back. Sunday dishes belonged to me. Hospital weeks meant no surprise plans. We taped the page to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a tomato. Nora stared at it, then laughed once, tired and real. That is the least romantic thing I've ever loved. My phone buzzed before I could answer. Then hers did too. She looked down first. The screen lit her face blue. Subject line, Nurse Practitioner Program Admission Decision. The email sat open between us, brighter than the kitchen light. Nora did not touch it at first. She read the first line, then the second, then pressed her fingers to her mouth the way she did when a patient lived after everyone had gone quiet. I got in, she whispered. The words should have made the room lift. Instead, they opened a distance neither of us had measured yet. Baltimore. 2 years. Clinical rotations, weekend intensives, a scholarship that covered tuition but not rent, an acceptance packet with deadlines boxed in red. Nora clicked through the attachments while I stood beside the sink with soap drying on my hands. There was a housing form, a transfer request template for Mercy's sister hospital, a calendar so full it looked bruised with ink. I applied before us, she said, not looking at me. Before the voice note. Before the date. I didn't hide it to trick you. I know. My voice came out steady enough to be useful. Inside, something small and selfish had already grabbed the edge of the table. Stay, it wanted to say. We just got here. Her phone rang before either of us could make the room honest. It was her older sister, Denise, calling from Atlanta. Nora put it on speaker because that was how serious things entered her life, with witnesses. Denise cried when she heard, then immediately started asking about money, rent, loans, whether Mom would understand why Nora could not fly down as often. There was no cruelty in it, just family math. Love divided by distance. Obligation stacked beside ambition. Nora opened a notebook and began writing numbers while Denise talked. Gas, train, Baltimore deposit, board exam fees, Mom's prescriptions. My mother's physical therapy calendar still hung on my fridge beside our yellow rules page, and I felt the shape of my own responsibilities pressing back. Warehouse inventory, night, shift coverage. A promotion I had not told Nora about because it came with longer hours. My mother's house key on my ring because she still could not manage stairs alone. Everyone needed something solid, and the woman in front of me was tired of being treated like the strongest beam in every building. After Denise hung up, Nora sat down hard. I'm not giving this up, she said. Her eyes lifted to mine, scared but direct. I need you to hear that before you say anything kind. I wiped my hands on a dish towel I had not realized I was twisting. I hear it. I love being with you. I love your mom. I love Thursday coffee. But I have worked too long to become someone who almost became a nurse practitioner. The refrigerator hummed. The tomato magnet held our rules to the door like a tiny, ridiculous flag. I wanted to be noble, but fear had a body. It sat in my ribs. It made me picture her apartment empty, her mug gone, her seat at Harbor Light waiting until even Lily stopped asking. When do you have to decide? I asked. 2 weeks. Nora closed the laptop halfway, then stopped with her hand on the lid. It feels like there are only 2 choices. I leave and risk us, or I stay and lose a part of myself I may never get back. Quiet, not gone, Nora said the next morning, before fear could turn either of us into worse versions of ourselves. She put the yellow legal pad on the kitchen table, the one with our rules still taped to the fridge, and drew 3 columns with a black pen: school, family, us. No arts. No dramaticunderlines. Just boxes, dates, and the kind of handwriting she used on medication charts when mistakes could hurt people. I don't want a love story that only works if I stay small, she said. And I don't want a dream that requires me to pretend I don't have people here. I sat across from her with my warehouse schedule, my mother's physical therapy calendar, and the unopened promotion packet I should have shown her sooner. That was my first piece of work. Honesty, even when it made me look less steady. They offered me regional night operations, I told her. More money, worse hours. I was going to wait to mention it. Nora looked up, not angry, tired of delayed truths. No waiting with important things. I know. She nodded once and went back to the paper. Then she did what she did best. She made chaos triageable. She called Mercy's education coordinator and asked about a part-time ER position at the Baltimore Sister Hospital. She emailed the program director about clinical placement flexibility. She called Denise and did not apologize for needing shared responsibility with their mother's prescriptions and flights. Denise pushed back at first, voice sharp with worry, saying, "So what? Everybody rearranges because you got into school?" Nora closed her eyes, breathed once, and used our rule. "I'm not gone. I'm asking you to be in the plan instead of outside it criticizing me." That line changed the call. Not magically. Denise still cried. Nora still cried after hanging up. But a spreadsheet opened where guilt had been. My part was smaller than what I wanted to offer and harder than writing a check. I declined the night promotion and asked for a warehouse training role with 2 remote reporting days. Less status, steadier hours. I hired Mrs. Alvarez from my mother's church for Monday, Wednesday, Friday afternoons and set up a medication dispenser. I learned to refill myself instead of handing the whole job to Nora. I added my name to the Baltimore apartment search, not as the man paying for everything, but as the man who would drive down every other weekend with groceries, tools, and no resentment hidden under the seat. We tested the plan for 2 weeks before calling it a plan. Shared calendar. Sunday video dinners with my mother. Thursday coffee by screen when she was away, in person when she was home. 1 drawer at my place stayed hers. 1 shelf in Baltimore stayed mine. On the final night before her acceptance deadline, we sat at Harbor Light with papers spread between the cups. Lily walked by, saw the color-coded mess, and smiled. "So what are you two calling this?" Nora looked at me, then at the hot latte between her hands. For once, neither of us answered too quickly. We never did find one perfect name for it that night. We called it a plan first, then a trial, then our life, which turned out to be the most honest name. 2 years did not pass like a montage. They passed in train receipts folded into Nora's nursing textbooks, in my mother's pill dispenser refilled every Sunday, in shared calendar alerts that said call before resentment, and in Thursday coffees held up to laptop cameras when one of us was too far away to touch. Nora became a nurse practitioner on a gray May afternoon in Baltimore, walking across the stage with her shoulders back and her name spoken clearly into a microphone she had earned. I stood beside Denise and my mother, who used her cane to stand before I could help her. Afterward, Nora did not run into my arms like a movie. She hugged her classmates first, cried into Denise's shoulder, checked a message from a patient's family, and then came to me with her cap crooked and her eyes shining. "You waited?" she asked softly. I shook my head. I showed up. By fall, we had 2 desks in a small office between Mercy General and the warehouse district, one with Nora's medical journals stacked by color, one with my route maps and grant forms. The sign outside read Harbor Night Clinic Fund. Lily designed the logo, a little lighthouse over 2 coffee cups. We helped night shift workers find affordable checkups, blood pressure screenings, medication refills, and rides after late appointments. Nora ran the clinical partnerships. I handled scheduling, deliveries, chairs, coffee, broken printers, and whatever else kept the doors from becoming just another good idea. My mother volunteered on Tuesdays, stamping envelopes with Mrs. Alvarez, who still corrected my label placement. Nora kept her Baltimore certification, her hospital shifts, her own checking account, her own friends, and a half closet at my place that no longer looked temporary. Her navy jacket still hung on my kitchen chair, but now beneath it sat 2 sets of keys in a ceramic bowl she bought from a street fair. The night we opened the clinic's first after-hours intake, Lily set up the old cafe tablet to record a thank you message for donors. The same tablet. The same tiny Bluetooth symbol in the corner. This time, the microphone icon glowed red because we had pressed it ourselves. Nora looked at it, then at me and laughed under her breath. Full circle. Better, I said. Consent. She bumped my shoulder with hers. On camera, she spoke first. She thanked the nurses, drivers, warehouse crews, single parents, and tired people who kept cities alive after dark. Then she looked at me, not hidden, not accidental, not afraid of being heard. And I want to thank the man who stopped mistaking waiting for choosing. My throat tightened, but I did not look away. I choose you, Nora, I said while the red light stayed on. On ordinary days. On hard ones. In every city we build from here. She reached for my hand under the table, where the 2 coffee cups sat warm between our schedules, our keys, and the open door.